Yeah, as he mentioned, my name is Scott Olson. I'm the marketing lead for Encryptics. And Encryptics is all about changing the way that businesses encrypt, share, and provide a chain of custody for their most sensitive data. And it's that sharing piece that's really the critical element here, is that how do people share data that's highly sensitive in healthcare, for example, that they need to save lives, but is also under protection of their business. So one of the key pieces of the problem here is that once data is shared, control is lost. Right? If you take a look at the way people share documents, it is downloaded through email, it's shared on cloud drives, it's transferred through USBs. Well, once it's shared, that control is lost. It's downloaded to mobile devices as well. So employees pose a significant risk to businesses, especially in these regulated industries like financial services and healthcare, where they deal with a significant amount of regulated data. Whether it's through an employee PC, whether it's through their mobile device, if that's lost, if it's stolen, or there's simply employee misuse and they download data to their personal device, there's a real problem for those businesses because they're liable for that data. And ultimately, centralization of security controls has failed us. A lot of people look to the controls to protect the environment that they're in, to provide that protection of that data, but once it is shared again, they lose that control. So what's required to maintain that control? Well, first of all, you have to have that requirement for the business to share data safely. Some of this is life-saving data. They need to be able to share it. They need to be able to secure it. But they need granular controls over it. Who can have it? What device can they use to access it? How long can they have access to that data? They need a chain of custody. They need to know who accessed that data and provide a real clear audit trail of the access of that data and be able to revoke the privileges at any point in time independent of the network access. If you look at the solutions in place today to protect mobile devices, like mobile device management solutions, much of those require access to the network to do a remote data wipe. So you need to be able to have that completely at any point in time to be able to revoke privileges to your most sensitive data. And that's what we really believe is the next big leap. And so this is a quote from Gartner. It's big and long and I won't read it. But John Gerard is one of their kind of thought leaders around security technology and particularly encryption. And he's really focusing in here at that encryption and data control needs to be enforced at the time of creation, not centralized. And if you kind of take a look at that last sentence, is that mobile world has changed the game. Data is decentralized from your environment. And perimeter defenses are not adequate to protect those, right? It's basically, that's what that's saying. And the encryption market is already large. You're looking at a market today that's about $3.9 billion out of the overall security market. But it's looking to triple in the next, 5 years in 2022 to over a $12 billion market. So Encryptics is all about protecting the data, not the environment. So we've implemented a .safe architecture, and you can think of .safe as similar to .zip was for compressing data. Is that you need to be able to share data safely. So if you're thinking about sensitive data, you need to get to somebody else, then you can .safe that file, very similar to the way that you .zip a file if you need to compress and share that because it's too large. You need to be able to .safe it because it's sensitive. So Encryptics has been around for several years now. The technology is actually very mature. It's been tested in some of the most hardened environments on the planet. It's Encryptics for the enterprise. It provides the chain of custody, which is complete control and audit trail of who has accessed the data and a record of what device they accessed it from. It provides full DRM at the file level. So can you print it? Can you share it? Does it delete access over a period of time? When can you access it? You can revoke the privileges independent of the network because of the unique patented architecture of how you're able to access those particular files. And it provides DoD-grade encryption, but it's fully integrated into common systems like Microsoft Outlook. It's got applications for iOS and Android. It works on Mac OS as well. And in addition to that, it's got an open API and a command line interface so that you can integrate this into other applications where you can automate scripting as some of our healthcare system customers did, where they automated the distribution of patient schedules to all of the relevant professionals. So you can think of the anesthesiologists, the doctors, everybody that needed the full patient records for a surgery. They automated the distribution of that on a daily basis for the surgeries that were going to be going out that day. This is a high-level abstracted view of how it works. There's really two key components. You have the creator, the user of the data, and you have the recipient of the data. At the creation part, you're assigning the rights management. You're determining who can see it, when they can see it, and what they can do with it. You're signing that through the Encryptics server. It's creating a unique key for every encrypted file. That's then distributed through a peer-to-peer delivery of that data to the recipient, in which point that they can decrypt that at the device level, and it's tied with a device ID to that recipient's PC. So in other words, if they have a work PC, it can be authorized on the work PC, but if they download it to their home PC, it doesn't work. So it's protected at the device level, and in order to decrypt that data, it has to connect back to the Encryptics server. That's why you can deauthorize access to sensitive data independent of the network. It's not requiring it to connect back home to do that. So you can imagine that when you lose a very common scenario is you lose a laptop. It has sensitive data on there. This is a very common scenario in the healthcare industry where they have patient records or patient data that's sensitive. At that point, you can do a couple things. You can see, has anybody accessed that data? And then I can remove access to that data at that point in time. Checking to see if anybody has accessed it is an important piece of the puzzle, because often when you lose a PC, you have to immediately assume that that data has been breached, even if it hasn't. So from a differentiation perspective and a competitive analysis perspective, there's major players out there in encryption. Microsoft is one of them. With their Microsoft 365 infrastructure, they have Azure Information Protection. It's a centralized control. It provides it through the email server, and it provides it for the Microsoft-centric files. And so what this is doing is we're building a complementary story to this to show you that you can have that chain of custody and control all the way to the end devices, and it's really around shared devices and files of any type. Again, think of this as the .zip of security. You .save your file, and you can send it anywhere and have that full control and audit capability over that data, no matter where it goes. From a sales model perspective, the original management of this has some great relationships in the Middle East. This has actually been implemented for almost 3 years now. The central banks in the Middle East and in many of the individual banks in the Middle East. So one of the highest threat environments in the world. We're also getting into the telcos, the oil and gas in that Middle East through those relationships. We have some initial relationships here with healthcare, and that's where we're going to be focusing on the market domestically. So healthcare has a unique requirement of highly sensitive data and a very large need to share that data. So that's where our U.S. strategy is going to go. It's a SaaS model. I know that was one of the questions from an earlier session, is what's the kind of model? So this is software as a service. It's priced at $60 per user per year. And the international pricing is about twice the U.S. pricing. These are some of the early traction that we have. The way I would categorize this is very mature technology, proven technology, and a beginning team. The use of the funds that we want to have is to build out the team, build a repeatable, scalable sales model, and take this to market for healthcare in the U.S., and then expand and capitalize on our traction in the Middle East. We're raising $3.3 million, up to $5 million. Of course, at break, I can go through any of the questions that you might have or answer in the Q&A around the financials. But the essential is that we've already booked $750,000 of recurring revenue for 2018. Our goal is $1.5 million. We project to be profitable by the beginning of Q3 of 2019 and then break even in Q1 of 2019. From a team perspective, I'm keeping a close eye on the time here. From a team perspective, this is one of the keys too, is that Recently brought in new management to this team. As I mentioned, the technology is extremely mature and we're getting the team going. Tony Jennings is the CEO. He's a 25-year plus security veteran. He would have loved to be here himself, but he's actually in the Middle East meeting with some of our clients as well as starting off some new proof of concepts with some of the banks in the Middle Eastern countries. He is the founder and CEO of Wheel Group, which was acquired by Cisco Systems for $125 million. He's also had 2 other successful acquisitions under his belt with Mirage Networks as well as Coretrace. So he's the kind of cornerstone of this team. Brandon Hart is the CTO with 20 plus years technology experience. I'm the marketing lead. So what we're doing right now for the executive team is I'm serving as a virtual VP of marketing until we get the funding to fully establish and fund that sales marketing team. And Max Anner is a sales lead similarly with 25 plus years of experience both in security and fraud management. So with that, I'll open it up to any questions that you might have.
I have a clarifying question. So is this only for emails in transit, but it's not a detective? I mean, where is it sitting in the security?
So the actual encryption takes place at the endpoint device. It's not just in transit. So it's in transit, at rest, and actually in use, even in memory and protected.
So if I was sending a confidential email from you, we both have to have this service?
Yes, that's right. And so you would have this on your system. You would have the full client that would provide you the ability to enforce whatever rights that you wanted. You could say that I could view it, but I couldn't print it or I couldn't forward it. For me as a recipient, I can have just a read and apply client. So I don't have to be a customer of Encryptics at all. But I get a lightweight client that can either work on iOS, it can work on Android, it can work on Mac, it can work on PC. Anybody can receive these files, and then they're of course controlled by the DRM that's put on by the creator of those files.
How do you price it?
Yeah, so right now we're going completely enterprise licensing, and it's priced $60 to $100 per user per year. And in the Middle East, the prices are about twice that.
So you said you're currently in the Middle East and national markets. Have you ever tried to get into other markets internationally, or is Middle East exclusive?
So we're taking a look at some of the regulatory environments in the EU, in particular around GDPR and some of the new cyber security regulatory environments in the EU. That said, we're focusing everything where we have the most traction right now. And so what this is going to allow us to do is basically the funding is going to be used to establish a much stronger go-to-market plan. We're going to start out all of our efforts around the U.S. healthcare market and the Middle East because that's where we have the most experience and traction. And then once we capitalize on those, then we're going to take a look. I think that the EU, of course, is a great opportunity for this. This is not a U.S.-centric problem, but we're just trying to say where are we going to start in terms of our sales efforts and focus in order to conserve money and use it the most wisely.